We covered Anthropic the other day. Anthropic has developed an AI model that we're calling Blackmail Hal. Under duress in their laboratory experiments, they found that their AI module, when told it was being shut down, would 84% of the time threaten to blackmail one of the engineers. That part of the experiment was it had access to emails revealing the engineer was having an affair. It also was given the option of escaping into the real world. Somehow it thought it was in the real world where it began to make money and then didn't want to stop doing it. So that was pretty scary. The CEO now is going, to his credit, doing interviews and explaining what the consequences of this technology are going to be and trying to draw attention to the fact that people are not taking it seriously enough and that the political class needs to come up with an answer to some of the issues that this AI is going to raise. I've been ignoring personally all the people over the last couple of years as this story has been brewing who have been saying, no, 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 it's nothing. It's nothing. They're so exaggerating its capabilities because I could see with my own goddamn eyes what it could do. As soon as they released ChatGPT, we did a segment where we asked it to do a painting of Nixon and Kissinger in the Oval Office in the style of Peter Max. Boom, 2 seconds, did it. It was very obvious. However, it's actually working. It is working. So Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, one of the world's most powerful creators of artificial intelligence, has a blunt, scary warning for the US government and all of us. AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20% in the next 1 to 5 years. Amodei told us in an interview from his San Francisco office. Amodei said AI companies and government need to stop sugarcoating what's coming. The possible mass elimination of jobs across technology, finance, law, consulting, and other white collar professions, especially entry level gigs. So, this was an interview he did this week with Anderson Cooper, where he got into some of the details.
I do want to read something that Sam Altman, your former boss at OpenAI, said in September. He was saying that AI can cause significant, in his words, significant change in labor markets, good and bad. He went on to say that most jobs will change more slowly than most people think. And then he said this, and I want to just read it word for word. He said, many of the jobs we do today would have looked like trifling wastes of time to people a few hundred years ago. But nobody is looking back at the past wishing they were a lamplighter. If a lamplighter could see the world today, he would think the prosperity all around him was unimaginable. And if we could fast forward 100 years from today, the prosperity all around us would feel just as unimaginable. For younger people, I should say lamplighters was actually a job. People went around lighting lamps on the streets. I think a lot of people may not even know what a lamplighter is. But do you think Sam Altman is wrong?
Yeah, so, I think there are some things I agree with about that, and then there are some things that I think are too optimistic. So, I definitely agree that, AI, if we succeed at it, can grow the pie greatly, right? I wouldn't be surprised if economic growth is much higher than it is today as a macroscopic phenomenon, right? That AI allows society as a whole to be more productive. So
let me just say, because you've previously in the past said you've described a future where cancer is cured, the economy grows at 10% a year, the budget is balanced, and 20% of people don't have jobs.
That's exactly what I was getting to, right? Where I agree with all the positive potential. I think that isn't wrong. But I think the quote you just flashed is maybe too optimistic, maybe too sanguine about the ability for people to adapt. People have adapted to past technological changes, but I'll say again, everyone I've talked to has said this technological change looks different. It looks faster. It looks harder to adapt to. It's broader. The pace of progress keeps catching people off guard. And so I don't know exactly how fast the job concerns are going to come. I don't know how fast people are going to adapt. It's possible it'll all be okay, but I think that's too sanguine an approach. I think we do need to be raising the
I
alarm.
love the word
I think we
sanguine.
do need to be concerned about it. I think policymakers do need to worry about it. If they do worry and they do act, then maybe we can prevent it. But we're not going to prevent it just by saying everything's going to be okay.
Okay. And he actually goes on at the end of that interview to say maybe the AI companies, which are going to make enormous money from this, should be taxed to provide for the citizenry that's going to be unemployed through AI. In other words, a universal basic income kind of sounds like what he's suggesting. So look, I think that he's not prepared to examine the fact that the entire premise of capitalism is part of the problem here. But I do give him credit for trying to draw attention to the fact that this technology is about to lead to enormous economic dislocation. When you look at the world he describes, it's uh, it's not a change in kind. It's just a change in the extreme. What he's describing of a world where the productivity keeps getting better, the GDP keeps getting higher, and yet people, broadly speaking, are enjoying less and less of the theoretical prosperity that's supposed to come from it. I mean, that's the world we've been living in since 1970, where the productivity keeps increasing, but it
Right.
doesn't benefit the general population. This is just that on steroids. Um, Modi, 42, who's building the very technology he predicts could reorder society overnight, said he's speaking out in hopes of jarring government and fellow AI companies into preparing and protecting the nation. Lawmakers don't get it or don't believe it. CEOs are afraid to talk about it. Many workers won't realize the risks posed by the possible job apocalypse until after it hits. Quote, most of them are unaware that this is about to happen, Modi told us. It sounds crazy and people just don't believe it. Modi, who had just rolled out the latest versions of his own AI, which can code at near human levels, said the technology holds unimaginable possibilities to unleash mass good and bad at scale. Modi agreed to go on the record with a deep concern that other leading AI executives have told us privately. Even those who are optimistic AI will unleash unthinkable cures and unimaginable economic growth fear dangerous short term pain and a possible job bloodbath during Trump's term. Actually, Steve Bannon has been warning of that. We'll see a little clip of him. Quote, we as the producers of this technology have a duty and an obligation to be honest about what is coming. I don't think this is on people's radar. It's a very strange set of dynamics where we're saying you should be worried about where the technology we're building is going. Critics reply, we don't believe you. You're just hyping it up. He says the skeptics should ask themselves, well, what if they're right? So this is kind of a step by step of how he sees it playing out. OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, and other large AI companies keep vastly improving the capabilities of their large language models to meet and beat human performance with more and more tasks. This is happening and accelerating. Two, the US government, worried about losing ground to China or spooking workers with preemptive warnings, says little. The administration and Congress neither regulate AI. Remember, in the budget bill, that's one of the things in there, not to regulate AI,
Right.
nor caution the American public. This is happening and showing no signs of changing. Three, most Americans, unaware of the growing power of AI and its threat to their jobs, pay little attention. This is happening too. And then, almost overnight, business leaders see the savings of replacing humans with AI and do this en masse. They stop opening up new jobs, stop backfilling existing ones, and then replace human workers with agents or related automated alternatives. The public only realizes it when it's too late. And to that point, Fortune magazine just published an article where they polled CEOs, and 79% of them say they fear for their jobs if they don't maximize the uses of AI for their companies. So these CEOs are looking over their shoulders and are highly incentivized to incorporate AI thoroughly and quickly to that point. Um, so this is what Steve Bannon said about this.
Advances in artificial intelligence that are coming this year and next year, not some Buck Rogers in 10 years. I'm talking about the next 18 months. You're going to see the entry level or first couple of years jobs of managerial, administrative, and tech coding that are all going to be wiped out.
Okay. And this is why I keep saying they do not need all of these people anymore. They have no interest in providing you health care. They have no interest in providing you meaningful education. They have no interest in providing you clean, safe drinking water. They need less of us. They need a reduced population that is beaten down and easy to control. The people in control of our government, the PayPal mafia we were talking about earlier on, these people like Elon, these people like Peter Thiel, they want you dead, and they want a minimum population left that's not large enough to cause them a lot of trouble to do what kinds of work they are not yet capable of doing with Optimus robots. And sometimes when I say this, they say, well, what about Elon's natalist plan? Yeah, that's for him. He thinks he's the Ubermensch. He's the superior being. That's for him and people of his class. You think he wants you having a lot of kids? No, he does not. No, he does not. And it's very obvious in what they are doing. They know this AI is coming, and they know it is going to eliminate the need for perhaps most of the population, at least in the terms they think of, the need for labor. That's all you are to them. They don't need your labor anymore. And that's what makes this moment so dangerous. You have criminal, psychopathic oligarchs in charge of the world's most powerful military, in charge of the world's most incarcerated country, in charge of the country with the world's largest police force, who have a population that very quickly, as this CEO is describing, is no longer going to be needed to keep most of the machines running. Now, for white collar people, this is going to be the first time in recent times, in modern times, that they have experienced the economic dislocation of blue collar people. Now, that creates, we know historically, Peter Turchin has written about this. He wrote about it not in terms of AI, but in terms of we already have a moment where you have an overproduction of elites. And when you have an overproduction of elites, a lot of those elites turn towards revolutionary radical politics because the system is not serving them. So, yes, you're going to see a big radicalization of the children of the upper middle classes and middle classes in a way that you haven't seen since the 60s, and to an even greater extent, because at that time, the issues were Vietnam, racism, the economy was great. They didn't have those issues. This is going to be, they are going to experience what these factory workers that many of them have been saying learn to code to, they're going to find out what it is to be dislocated like that. You're talking about massive social unrest and a collapse of civil society. Are we going to have a civil war? Call it what you will. But again, this is a moment where all of these contradictions in the system are about to come to a head, and there's going to be a war over what kind of society we're going to have. And the only two choices are really techno feudal fascism or socialism. That's it. There's no real third way this can go.
Yeah, and this was, what we've all been saying this for 10 years. I mean, this was the fork in the road,
Right.
and that standard order of business was not going to be viable for much longer. The center would not hold for much longer. We warned about this in 2016. The
Yep.
Democrats told us to shut up. They
Yep.
lost. They would have lost again were it not for the pandemic, and now here we are, having slid further down the road of option number one, and that is far more likely to win the day than option number two, because the country is completely indoctrinated with this free market orthodoxy that is literally, not only is it killing them in ways that we've known about for years with lack of accessibility to housing and medicine and food. I mean, we have food deserts all over the country where you can't
Right.
get a piece of
Yep.
fruit. Marcel Dixon was talking about this when we interviewed him a
Right.
couple of years ago. James Clyburn's district, this centrist Democrats district. The only food is like Dollar General, where you get
Right.
frozen
Right.
sandwiches and shit.
Right.
So it kills us in that way. But now you add to that just an implosion in demand for workers. Well, according to this market system of ours, what does that mean? If you have an implosion in demand, you're going to have to create a decrease in supply in order to balance that out. And you've had guys like Andrew Yang talk about the UBI, which is an idea, but it requires a radical transformation of society that people are just
Right.
not going to wrap their heads around in time. It's just not going to
Right.
happen.
Right.
Partly because there's too many old people who are living in a world that went obsolete 40 years ago, and they don't understand that.
Right.
And they're fucking everybody up who's
Right.
younger than them. This is why I phrase it in these terms. And I know we don't need to get inundated with people. I'm a boomer and I've been protesting for years.
Why don't you just put me out on an ice floe?
Yeah, we know. We're not talking to you. We're not talking about you. We're talking in generalities, because that's how you talk about overall dynamics in generalities, because those are large numbers. Okay? The big problem is that you still, at this phase, have a lot of people who are old who think that the world is what it was 35 years ago. Oh, I paid my way through college driving a cab. Okay, what was rent? $75 a month? You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And once that dynamic sets in and repeats and repeats and repeats, it's unbreakable. I think it's unbreakable. I think it's too late, which is what we said 10 years ago. We said this is really your last chance. And now
Right.
we're 10 years past the last chance, which means the last chance is come and gone. Sorry.
Well, I think it was the last chance to avoid some kind of a civil war, whether it's a civil war, a de facto civil war, is going to come to a head. Like there is going to be a moment where the population wakes up, even the MAGA people. Is that too late? Again, very often the way really always when rebellions are successful, it's because you got people on the inside who don't want to cooperate with the system.
Right.
This is a notoriously ornery country with a cult of individualism. So, that kind of a system might not take. And that's your best hope at this point.
Please clap.